5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this podcast event. James Hilliard here. Glad to be on board to moderate this event, being brought to you by Experis Technology Group in partnership with HPE and Intel. This is data analytics in the fast lane. We're going to be diving into how organizations today are using advanced technologies, and I'm talking things like enterprise storage as a service. We're talking hybrid cloud, AI, data analytics, using those advanced tools to really drive at and get to those insights and to drive the innovation that all of your organizations are looking for, and do it at a fast pace. And speed is going to be definitely something we talk a lot about, especially with our featured guest. Gary Foote is here. He is the CIO of the MoneyGram Haas F1 Team. He's been there since 2016. In that role, all the IT systems, services, the staff in their global operations, that is all under his purview. And we'll be talking about the rapid pace that technology has changed in terms of what we have in the F1 world. And then also on board, we have Raymond Tuchman. He is the CEO of Experis Technology Group. And we'll be talking about the learnings that not only he and team have had, but their customers as well, going through this journey of technology and innovation and using these advanced technologies. And again, a lot of these advanced technologies have been proven out there on the Formula One racetracks around the world. So we're going to dive in with Gary in just a moment, but I wanted to start, Raymond, with you. Let's think about this. Since we've got racing and speed, this is going to be our warm-up lap or so, right? Get the tires warmed up, get the RPM slowly getting there so we don't blow that engine right out the gate. And I want to talk about that speed of innovation, and really from a little bit of your perspective in terms of your time of service in the technology industry, and then the speed at which all these changes are coming at your customers and how they're dealing with that. So we're going a little faster, Raymond, than we used to, aren't we?
Absolutely, no question about it. So my name is Raymond Tuchman. I'm CEO of Experis Technology Group, and I personally have been in the business providing infrastructure and the systems for clients for over 40 years now. And we've been a gold partner for Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and Intel for the last 20 years. Things are definitely going faster and faster. I think most of our client base, they've had the same desires over the last 40 years, but they just haven't had the technology and the speed to be able to grasp the information that they've been collecting over all these years, even though many years ago they couldn't collect as much information. I mean, I think about today, back in my younger days when I would race my old Camaro, and now, which was very fast at the time, but it is nothing like it is today with the Formula F1 cars or anything else. I mean, they've made the racetracks. They used to have a quarter-mile drag strips. Now they're only an eighth mile because the cars go too fast. So we're seeing that today.
I remember my 67 Bug. I had a 1600cc engine in there. I popped out to dual carb 1776s, and I was like, oh, I'm streaming down the road. No, I'm still just barely moving compared to what F1 cars do. Let me ask you about your customer base. We're saying that the speed of innovation, and because the desire has been there and it's always been there, but
Right.
Sometimes we didn't have the tools to get to our desired outcomes. Now a lot of those tools are being proven. They are ready for prime time. Are the teams that you're working with feeling that they have a grasp of really how to use these tools and what insights to be diving and driving after? Or is there still a little bit, wow, we're just overwhelmed because so much has changed so quickly?
We do a lot with, of course, commercial organizations, but in the federal government, we are doing a lot of things with the Department of Defense in respect that many years ago, when I would sell a solution like a mission planning system, it could take up to a couple days to be able to program the fighter jet into what its mission is supposed to be. Today, these things are done in seconds because of the technology and the speed. So now, if there's some critical mission that has to be done, they can analyze and project and do the plan within seconds and load the fighter jet up and off it goes. It's before, years ago, it would take 48 hours easily. That's it.
Right. And now it's that instantaneous. And we're going to be talking about that instant real time feedback and use of technology with Gary Foote here in just a moment. Raymond's going to hang on board. We're going to come back a bit later on in the conversation and share a little bit more about the customer journey that Raymond and team over at Experis Technology Group are taking their customers on, some of the things that they can help you with. With that, though, it is my pleasure to bring on Gary Foote. He joins us here. Again, he is the CIO of the MoneyGram Haas F1 Team there. And Gary, do appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me on board. Looking forward to it.
Well, we're glad to have you here, Gary. I would feel it is inappropriate since Raymond got to talk about his Camaro. I mentioned my VW. Did you have a car back in the day that was one of your early ones that you enjoyed?
Lots. So I'm definitely an auto fan. Pro highlight cars. I was very into classic minis for a little while, so I had lots of them. But the practicalities of classic minis are minimal at best. But what is terrible now, I have to confess, although I work for an internal combustion engine team, I do drive an electric car now. So which is not the most popular car in the car park, that's for sure.
I bet you take a little bit of razzing for that, but that's all right. It's the carbon offset, right?
Absolutely.
Doing your part. We talked as we kicked off here with Raymond, this idea that just the changes that have been going on have been so fast in so many industries, and obviously F1 is one of those as well. You came to the Haas team 2016. Just in that short period from then to now, can you describe how you observe the speed of change?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Formula One is very much a technology-driven sport, right? So, the driver, the car, the people, these are all the massive ingredients, to the Formula One cake. But technology is a big piece of that as well. And honestly, as a technologist, that's what gets me up in the morning. The teams that are able to leverage technology, pushing the sort of, we talk a lot in our world about bleeding edge versus leading edge. Balancing that with risk. Risk is a really important factor when we're looking at the technology and innovation. We have a very public canvas for risk, if that makes sense. Especially when safety is concerned. But the teams that are able to innovate and push the technology boundaries, honestly, they're the teams that are going to succeed. At Haas F1, we have really a remit to try being different. Our whole business model, which, widely challenged back in 2016 when I joined, very widely challenged, is about pushing innovation. It's about trying something different, introducing a little bit of controlled risk, and on the technology front, that's what we do. So we like to think that we're pushing the boundaries. So just in that little time I've been at Haas, from what I was doing at my previous team, multi-world championship winning, Mercedes, is saying, okay, they have a lower risk appetite than us. And so we have the opportunity to just kind of leverage technologies that are coming right on the bleeding edge and just seeing if we can apply them into our team.
You seem to be at a unique advantage compared to a lot of CIOs out there, meaning your industry is driven on the analytics. You all have adopted, and you have to adopt just as fast as the other teams out there, or you will be left behind. Some CIOs don't get that. Some CIOs butt heads with others on the executive level, wanting to innovate, wanting to invest in the technologies, but they can't. They get stuck. Do you feel somewhat lucky and privileged to be in such an industry that is pushing the edge?
Yeah, hugely. Yeah. And that's something that I talk to other technologists, other CIOs at various forums that we collaborate on. And I hear those challenges. We often talk about whether the CIO gets a seat at the top table, and I think across Formula One teams, certainly the ones that I've worked with or worked at, the CIO it does have that seat, because I think the team principals or the CEOs or the board of the car companies, they recognize that technology can be that differentiator. So, we do get good support. That doesn't mean to say that, every dollar that you want to spend, or every man, or personnel that you want to spend is still up against everybody else around the business, whether that's aerodynamicists who want to create downforce, whether that's designers that want to create a different part. So yes, we get good support, but I think we still face some of the challenges that your sort of regular businesses will face, whereby there's only a finite amount of resource, and every bit that you take is a bit that someone else can't have.
Absolutely. I recently toured a warehouse facility. It was on its journey of transformation. And I was talking to one of the technologists there and was talking about how they had just put in 50 IoT type devices, a couple of heat sensors and a lot of cameras. Can you tell us how many IoT devices, how many sensors are on an F1 car these days?
I can, but I tell you what, just for fun, I'm going to roll back kind of 30 years.
Okay.
Because what I often say is Formula One's been doing IoT for, probably 3 decades. And what I mean by that is IoT in its rawest form is sensors in, mechanical places, giving information and decisions being made on that data, right? We introduced, we as in Formula One introduced telemetry in its basic form kind of the mid-70s. So maybe one of your listeners will call me out on the dates, but I think it's about the mid-70s. Very much from a reliability and a performance. Prior to that, cars were completely mechanical, right? And so, your driver was your telemetry. So the driver would come back after a lap and would say, "Hey, this is what's happening to the car," but it was very much a human perception, or physical, visual. So a bit was broken on the car. When telemetry in its rawest form was introduced, it was about understanding what is happening to the car, comparing that to the driver's feedback and saying, okay, they match there, right? The driver is saying the car is behaving like this. The data is saying it's behaving like that. Great. But also those situations where the driver is saying the car's behaving, this way, but actually the data says this way. And then there's a bit of feedback to the driver to say, okay, you can understand the car a little different. Roll right that forward to today to come back to your question, James. We're looking at about 200, 250 physical sensors on the car. But I'm going to complicate matters because we also run virtual sensors. So what we do is we take all that data from those sensors. Some of them run up to 10,000 hertz at a time, right into a control unit that sits on the car, and we perform a bunch of real-time mathematics on it. So taking in, a multitude of different sensors to give what we call a virtual sensor that is also then presented either back to the engineering team back in the garage over the air, or sometimes are offloaded from the car to give you around 450 to 500 sensors in total. So that's your kind of data stream. And we carve that data up to engineers who are looking at safety is number one. We're looking at reliability of the car, so pressures, temperatures, those kind of things. And that's more in real time, I'm generalizing a little bit. And then performance data, quite often we want to understand what's the car doing in turn 5, or, understeer versus oversteer. You'll hear a lot of talk about that on the commentary. So that's that kind of, all that data is feeding in to help people understand what is happening on the car at a given point in time.
How much data does a car generate in one race?
In terms of offloaded, so the data that comes over the air is limited by the bandwidth of the radio system. Really is its limitation. The radio system, the radio spectrum that we take in each country is divided up across the teams and the broadcasters and various else. So that is a fairly limited factor. So the bulk of our data is offloaded off the car. You'll see when the car comes into the garage on the TV, you'll often see a mechanic chuck a cable in. That is literally a gig Ethernet cable that pulls data off at quite a speed. And that can generate on a typical race event well over 1 terabyte of data. Video is also a big innovation that's going through Formula One at the moment. Probably has been for the last decade, but as everybody knows, video is just getting higher frame rates, bigger bit rates, but much faster and bigger file sizes. But video is quite a differentiator for us to be able to understand things like pit stop analysis or what might be happening on the car at a given time, particularly at a test. So it's not unusual for a whole event with video, telemetry data, offloaded data to be well in excess of 2 or 3 terabytes an event.
What would be, and I hope this has never happened, and I hope this is never going to happen, but what would be your mood if you lost the data from one race? What impact would that have on your team?
Let's hope that never happens. It's number one. I think the impact would be quite significant. Typically, I'm assuming there from the question that the race is over. So a lot of the real-time information that we put a lot of real-time information around. So we transmit telemetry data off the car, transmit it around the garage. We send that over an MPLS fixed line back to our operations center in Banbury, which is where I'm based. And then we push that on to our headquarters in Charlotte, North Carolina. All of that happens in about a second from generation on the car to come about, depending on the location we're racing in and latencies. That is all in real time. So when you see the engineers with the squiggly lines, that's what they're looking at. What we then do is that data that is offloaded, which is kind of all that other data that is stored on the event. And a lot of that is done for retrospective analysis, performance improvement, right? So that is understanding what happened to the car, why it happened to the car, and mostly preventing that happening again if it was bad, or building on it if it was good, but also much more looking into the future. If we're trying to, for instance, place more downforce on the car, a lot of engineers in my world will talk about downforce is everything, it's pushing the car down. So by understanding how the car behaved in a given lap or a given circumstance, we can, retrospectively analyze that, put that through all our models and our software and our analytics to make the car better, safer, more reliable, higher performance, whatever that may be.
And
So,
again, losing that could have impacts, because then you don't have the ability of that insight for that race. And that could have major impacts, maybe not on the next race, but 3 races down the line when you're on a course that's similar to what you were just at, or conditions were similar, et cetera, right?
I think it would have both. Yeah, next race, absolutely, it would impact. And then the future of the team would impact. It would impact. So yeah, we take a lot of care and attention over our data integrity and our keeping it safe.
Yeah, and you said the word again, so I want to key in for a moment here on safe. What innovations, what technology, data have you been able to collect over the more recent years that have led to a tangible safety increase for the driver or for the pit crews, for the other drivers out there? What are one or two of the safety innovations that have come about because of collecting, storing, and accessing and making the right decisions with all this data?
I think utilizing the data for real-time decisions is had a huge impact on the safety of the car. These things travel at 220, 230 miles an hour. They can pull huge G-forces, and when they have an impact, in our team, our sort of big one was Bahrain 2020, when Romain Grosjean crashed at well over 200 miles an hour, and these are real big impacts. And you've got people's lives at stake. So safety is paramount. And I think the FIA, which is the governing body that looks after motorsport pretty much across the globe, has put a very high emphasis on safety in recent years. You've all seen the things like the Halo being developed. And the data that is collected off the car feeds directly into that decision making. The car can always be safer. And that's our aim. It's always that iterative approach to data. To make sure that things like crash structures, or we do a lot of work in finite element analysis, which is understanding the stiffness and the structure of particularly our carbon fibers. Understanding that and seeing how a structure behaves on impact, or in a given scenario. All of that data is fed back to say, how can we make it better? How can we make it safer? And it's not just safety for the driver. A lot of people focus in on that, but we've got to remember the safety of, track marshals, the safety of the spectators, and the safety of our mechanics, the guys and girls that work in the garage. All of that has to be taken into consideration.
What about artificial intelligence? We've talked a lot about the data is here. You make decisions. Is it still human technicians making a lot of the decisions, or are we relying more on AI in F1? Where's the state of artificial intelligence use, and where do you see that going in the very probably short term? Because AI is growing so quickly. We're not talking in 3 to 5 years. We're probably talking in months.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'll be slightly flippant and say we've been using it for a little while in its current maturity level, at least. Where we see, I'm an AI optimist, right? So I think people sit in kind of different AI camps. I'm definitely an AI optimist. Again, I see Haas F1 particularly as a team that can push that boundary a little bit further, perhaps just taking a tiny little extra risk. Where I see I've got a finite amount of humans that are doing stuff, whether, across the bench, across the business, whether that's engineering teams or designers or back office, everybody's trying to do something, and they are limited by the hours in the day and, constants like that. Where I see AI is taking away some of the tasks that machines can start to do, such that they can focus their time on areas that they can't. I'm conscious I'm not directly answering the question, but what I'm saying is, if we take CFD, computational fluid dynamics, so the output of that on a high performance compute cluster is a ton of images that show an aerodynamicist where the downforce on a car is in a given situation. And if we can take that images, let's say it generates 500 images, and I can dismiss 400 of them using AI, then the 100 that are left, that engineer can now spend, 5 times, 10 times as long analyzing to understand where it is. So that's where I see the benefit is very much efficiency of the workforce, because we're all limited both in, fiscal resource and human resource.
And to that point, I've been reading recent articles, and it's the same thing in the drug manufacturing space, healthcare. If they can get rid of a whole bunch of stuff that the AI can determine, I saw one thing. It was, I believe, on melanomas, and a system was able to really say, "Yep, this is a cancerous skin cell," but still have the doctors, the physicians still do that double check, still have the person. That's what you're saying there, is that you'll continue to rely on AI, but the people are still responsible.
At this point in time, we still have people making the decisions, but we have technology presenting or focusing the data to allow them to make the best decision. But I still think AI is not quite there. AI is a kind of word that's bounced around a little bit, but still below the surface, there is still intuition. What I call it almost like the sort of morale factor. This is I think I should go this way. And that, I don't think AI is there. And in F1, we use that a lot. You'll have a girl or guy sat on the pit wall, and they've got all this data, but they've got to make a decision like that. And they will make it partly with the data that's on the screen that my team are presenting, but partly they're going to be basing it on experience and intuition. And that's the bit where I think, at least in the foreseeable, I don't think we'll move away from that.
Have you ever had the ability to drive one of the cars? And really, it's not a car; it's a computer with wheels. But have you ever been able to get behind the wheel?
So yes and no. I've never driven it under power, but I'm quite small. You can't tell from my video. I'm quite short, and Formula One drivers in particular, they're small. You'll spot it on the TV sometimes. So I don't travel too much to the races, but when I did in a previous life at a previous team, I used to drive the car through push power, so people would be pushing it into the pit box so that we could practice pit stops. So I would say I'm halfway there.
Okay. All right. And then just on the explosion of F1 popularity, I'm going to say for U.S. audiences, this has been a worldwide event, but in the U.S., there's a whole lot of excitement. I've got a 19-year-old son that loves watching everything on TV and all the documentaries behind the scenes and all that. Do you have a perception of where is F1 the biggest in the world? Is there a certain country, region where it is just the biggest thing out there and has the biggest fan support and following?
Well, that's a tough question. I think you're right. The US is taking off in the US, and I'm really glad. There are 2 reasons. One, we're obviously a US team, so for us personally, that's really great for us. But also, it's such a huge market for some of the companies that really do invest quite heavily in the sport. A lot of the technology that is developed in Formula One, as people know, is transported into the automotive world. So to see that explosion in such a key market, it can only be great for those brands to continue their involvement and their investment in the sport. Europe has obviously been very, very big traditionally. The UK is huge. I mean, Silverstone, I lived 3 or 4 miles from Silverstone circuit. We had nearly 500,000 people come through that event. That is huge. It just sells out every time. They put the ticket prices up, sells out again. Everyone complains it's too expensive, sells out again. Formula One is riding a wave at the moment. I think we're doing great things. The sports owners have got a really firm handle on things like our environmental, initiatives. Something that I think we're a global sport with a very public platform, new markets coming on, as you said, James, like the US, and really our popularity is coming up. So we do have I would say our responsibilities are definitely getting more significant, and we need to take them seriously. But yeah, it's tough.
Global.
I couldn't put it
It's
on
global.
a single country. Yeah,
It's
it is
global.
really
It's
truly global.
Yeah.
It really is truly global.
Last question for you. This is going to put you on the spot.
Sure thing.
Will we ever see F1 cars that are fully electric?
No, not in the near term. No, I don't think we will. I think the drive to electric is very good. And there's an awful lot of benefits to it. We've got an electric series with Formula E, and that popularity of that is improving significantly. But I think where we are, that's our DNA. Internal combustion is where we're at. And my gut feeling, 100% opinion here, maybe some of the listeners might not agree with this, is that I think you'll start to see big movement in synthetic fuels. I think synthetic fuels will come. If you ask me the question, will we always run on fossil fuels? I would say no. I think the trajectory of Formula One is that we will end up on environmentally friendly synthetic fuels, but I think there's still a place for internal combustion motorsport. And I think that's where the DNA of the sport lies.
Gary, really appreciate it. We're going to take a pit stop, change drivers, get Raymond behind the wheel here again. We'll let you go charge your car so you can get back and forth to the office. Gary, really appreciate you taking time and joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, Raymond, I hope you are ready to get back in the driver's seat there and continue the drive forward here with me. It was great hearing from Gary. Just a real quick response from you. Anything that Gary said that really caught your attention, new piece of information, philosophy he had about the adoption technologies?
Well, I would say that all the edge computing, the IoT stuff that he does is very appropriate to our customers that we have as well. I mean, our customers may not be doing F1 racing, but I mean, I've got one client that we have to have all these sensors all over the manufacturing plants, because if one thing burps for 5 or 10 minutes, it can cause issues all the way down the line. And so we need to know real time analytics and what's going on in those manufacturing facilities all around the country to make sure that their production continues, because one thing affects another. And if they have to stop production, they could lose millions of dollars a day.
Yeah, millions of dollars. They can lose reputation, customer base down the line. I mean, all those challenges. What are some of the biggest challenges that you see from your customer base across the board when they are trying to get to running these data intensive workloads, right? We talked earlier, they have the desire. Now they know there are tools and technologies out there, so they think, okay, we can do this, but where do they either stumble off the starting line, or where do they say, we need help, Raymond, we really want to get here, but we're not quite sure what path?
I think a lot of times it's their IT, the personnel that they have within the organization. So the hardware and software is really coming alive for these clients. The expertise of finding people that know how to work these is very difficult. And this is one of the reasons we partner with HPE, because they have a service, a GreenLake service, which will actually help clients manage and monitor systems. So there's a whole team of thousands of people behind an individual client. The client doesn't have to rely on only their IT people, but there's a whole team of people behind them to keep the systems up and running and operational 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Well, let's dive a little bit deeper there, because that was something that I got from Gary talking with us. It really is a team approach, whether it's, the experts like him back at headquarters, whether it's people in the garage, whether it's the technicians right on the track. It really, the team has to work together. So what are some of the things that your Experis Technology Group brings to bear for the organizations that are looking to get these real-time insights and do that analytics? What's your team play that you bring out there to really help them?
Our team play would be our 40 years of experience and hundreds of clients and how they do things. And we bring those expertise to the new clients. So they have more advanced features of functionality and know what to do. and they're learning from other clients what they've done and mistakes and things that they've done well. We bring those capabilities to our clients.
I know that in conversations that I still have with teams that are on this journey and really understanding the power that they can unleash on their organization by getting into the data. There's still well, do we do this in the cloud? Do we do this on-prem? Is it some type of hybrid? A lot of companies kind of fall into that hybrid just because of the way that the world is evolving. But is that one of the things that you help teams do as well, is make those choices early on, sit down with them, really understand where they want to go, and then you can bring those learnings from other systems that you've rolled out there and in other experiences to really help give them that guide down the road?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I mean, we help clients where should their IT, where should their information live, and should it be in the cloud, a hybrid, or their own private cloud. And we actually stress a lot of times through the HPE GreenLake services a private cloud. Some of the reasons for private cloud is we deal with a lot of companies that have huge security requirements. They need to be reliant on their systems. They don't want to be, they won't, so a lot of them don't want to be in a public cloud, because one of the problems is in a public cloud is that if the system goes down, I mean, if something happens at AWS, then all of a sudden AWS is concerned, but they may not be concerned about that client. And that's a huge issue. In the security reasons, if in a data center somebody's doing something that's bad and the public officials come in and physically take equipment, they could be taking hundreds of customers of businesses' information because of one client, where on a private cloud, it's your systems, but being helped in our case with HPE GreenLake, being managed by HPE, but you're dedicated and they're dedicated and we are dedicated to make sure that you are up and running 7/24. We care about you individually.
There are a lot of technologies with an S there that do play into any team's journey. And obviously storage is a big part of it, but they're also, my understanding and in conversations I've had, there's an even more holistic approach. I mean, it's having to make sure that you do have the right amount of bandwidth coming in and out to handle all the data. If you're putting more sensors out there, it's collecting more things. So the holistic approach, you plus HPEs plus customers of the world, is that really the winning combination? All three of those teams at the table together to understand where a customer wants to get, and then working together for that individual, as you were saying, that focused approach for them.
Absolutely. I mean, we have some clients that have to have their own private high performance networks because they can't let anybody else on those networks. And we have other clients who their network speeds are not that critical. And their information to them, even though it's critical information, they can be down for hours or days, and it won't affect their business overall. But a lot of times, a lot of our clients, it's mission. Everything is about the mission, and it's saves lives. I mean, when we're providing battlefield management systems, if something's happening out in the battlefield, it all has to be real time, private network to make sure that nobody else can tap into it, and off we go.
Absolutely. We had mentioned earlier the event in partnership with HPE and Intel. A lot of these HPE Alletra storage, their whole portfolio, it's run on the Intel Xeon Scalable processor family out there, of course, combined with HPE GreenLake. You've been rolling this out to customers for a good amount of time. Can you share one or two kind of across the board results, right? Once teams are committed to the idea of an HPE GreenLake, that's one thing, the idea. But then once it's in place, what do they come back and say? Hey, Raymond, you were right on all the promises, but here's that other thing. Here's that thing that we're really jazzed about. We had that aha moment. This is really what it's brought to us. Do you have anything across the board that seems to cross boundaries?
I think they're jazzed about not having to ever be short on storage or compute power, because there's always extra compute, extra storage capabilities, network capabilities that they can expand into automatically without having to say, "Oh my God, I don't have the storage, so I can't grab all the information that I want. And basically, with GreenLake, unlimited storage, unlimited compute, and unlimited networking.
Raymond, really appreciate it, folks. Part of this conversation was obviously meant to share the Experis Technology Group kind of story, what they're doing to help customers out there, customers like you. So we definitely want you to reach out, continue the conversation. A couple of things you can do. One, you can visit online, experistg.com for more information. And then if you want to get directly in touch with someone on the team, info@experistg.com is the email address. Make sure you focus your attentions there. Raymond, again, appreciate your time. Glad to have Gary on board here as well. Folks, hope you got some insights into the F1 world, as well as to what Experis Technology Group is doing to help folks like yourself. With that, we'll wrap things up. Thanks for joining us, and we do look forward to talking to you all down the road.